Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious. Recording a show here today on a great day where we've had two astronauts in here, and Jay Chladek. Chladek is here with me.
Yes.
Jay Chladek, I got your name. We're going to spell it in the bottom, but there's how you spell it there as we're on the fly today here with astronauts Jack Schweikert and talking future space stations. We're going to talk about with Jay here in his book Outposts on the Frontier.
Jack Lausma and Rusty Schweikert.
Yeah, they were, what did I say?
You said Jack Schweikert.
I did. I said
Yes,
Jack Schweikert, Rusty Lausma. Well, Marty, I was on our board there. Everything going good over there? Okay, buddy.
Okay, good.
Searching from Skylab is a great DVD that you got to own, and we'll be posting that on Facebook and our program here where you can buy it. We had a great day today with these legends, signing a bunch of stuff. You're going to have to go out to the Space Center there and do the movie out there. There's Jay with Rusty Schweikert and Jack Lausman in the background. Tell us about the day today and how you enjoyed our museum, Jay.
Well, this is the first time I've been out to this museum, and I must say it is very nice, even though when people go to museums, they expect to see big things. It's the really cool little things that you don't normally see that you can concentrate on. And the beauty of any space program is even little artifacts can tell really big stories.
And we've got a lot of little artifacts and a lot of big stories here. We're so proud of some of our one-of-a-kind things that you mentioned here. You won't see anywhere else.
Yes.
How did you enjoy Mr. Schweikert and Lausma today?
They're very good. I mean, I've met him before, but in Rusty Schweikart's case, it's really nice because other events might focus more on his participation in Apollo with Apollo 9. But what a lot of people don't realize is his role in Skylab, being one of the backup astronauts. When one of the solar arrays was lost on launch and the other one was jammed, Rusty had to spend most of his time suited up in the neutral buoyancy tank at Marshall Space Flight Center, actually going in and helping to run through some contingencies to try and get that stuck solar array unfurled. That was very, very important to the mission because even though there were the 4 solar arrays on the Apollo telescope mount, they didn't necessarily provide all the energy for the station. And if they did not get that stuck solar array unfurled, Skylab might have ended after only the first crew.
It's 100 degrees or more, 125, 50 inside.
Correct. They also
consumables were getting messed up, and
yep, they had to erect ultimately 2 different sun shields on there to replace the micrometeoroid shield that ripped off during launch ascent. And so Rusty was involved with the planning stages of that and coming up with procedures, and that was for the crews that were on board to actually finally prove out those procedures that would work.
We had a great time today with them, great amiable guys, and Rusty, of course, is very involved as a planetary defender, as the founder of one of the co-founders of Asteroid Day on June 30th, and also the B612. Isn't that the organization?
That is correct, yes.
And B612 is about the awareness of globally protecting our world in way of treaties and things like that he's been involved in. B612, I think, is an asteroid number on there.
It's a number designator for an asteroid. I mean, there are a lot of asteroid. Well, the beauty of it is orbital protection of Earth from orbital encounters is a very, very important subject. It's an evolving subject, and it is something that's very important because if a large enough asteroid is to hit this planet, life as we know it, even if it doesn't cease to exist, it could be a really, really bad day for those of us that survive it.
It was for the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Yeah, look into Rusty's much more than just Apollo 9 astronaut. He's very involved with Asteroid Day. He said that last week he was at Brian May, his co-founder of Asteroid Day at a rock concert that Brian May, lead guitarist for Queen, was doing in California last week. So
That is correct. I mean, Brian May, before he became a musician, was going to college studying astrophysics, as I recall. He did not finish his degree. He did a little something
Freddie Mercury and a couple other guys.
The joke being is that he got his astrophysics degree for spending a lot of time around Mercury. Freddie Mercury, not the planet Mercury.
That's right. That is an odd little twist there, of course. Yeah.
Yes, but he did go back to school. So it just goes to show even a famous rock star can go back to school and get a really good degree.
He did, and he's and Rusty's behind all that. We loved having him here with Jack, of course. We're going to talk a little bit about space stations, as your book, Outposts on the Frontier, is a good source of that. When was that published? And we're looking at Salyut 1 here, the world's first space station. When did you publish your book?
The book was published by University of Nebraska Press as part of the ongoing book series called Outward Odyssey, edited by Colin Burgess. When I got in there, it was only supposed to be about 10 titles, but now I think it's up to like 20 or something, and it's still growing. My book came out in 2017, so it's been in circulation for over 5 years now.
Outpost on the Frontier, the first 50 years of space stations.
Essentially correct, yes. And I cover the history going back to U.S. Air Force's Manned Orbiting Laboratory, which segued into the architecture that led to the Salyut space stations, a program called ALMAS, which was, like Manned Orbiting Laboratory, was intended to be a manned orbital reconnaissance satellite with the telescope and cameras on board to basically snoop on what's going on the other side of the planet. We were developing a Manned Orbiting Laboratory. The Soviets started developing a station which was under the codename ALMAS. And the way Salyut came about is when we started work on the Skylab program, the Soviets realized that there was enough hardware and development from ALMAS that they could theoretically leapfrog the U.S. and have a manned civilian station in orbit before Skylab, which they succeeded with.
There it is, right here, the world's first space station.
That is correct. And in order to do it, they didn't necessarily use the equipment that was in development for ALMAS because they didn't need to stick a big telescope on board. So the solar arrays on the original Salyut were based on the Soyuz spacecraft. Same thing with many of the propulsion modules and stuff. The developer of the ALMAS architecture, a chief designer by the name of Vladimir Chelomey, developed such good architecture that it is still in use today on the International Space Station. It forms the backbone of both the Russian service module and the FGB node. And their other modules too have a lot of architecture based on the ALMAS Salyut architecture as we know it today.
Here's a artist sketch of the early Salyut space stations. What's the big cutout up there at the top there?
It's kind of interesting because the cutout on the core module there, on an ALMAS, would normally be pointed towards Earth because that was the main area where the optical telescope and camera system would be pointed towards Earth to shoot its photos. On the original Salyut, they turned that opening turned it skyward and basically had set up a bunch of telescopes, solar telescopes, and other stuff. Unfortunately, the launch cover did not come loose when the station got to orbit. And since the Soviets were not planning to do an EVA spacewalk, they had no equipment set up for it. So unfortunately, those telescopes were not good for anything because there was a cover stuck on there.
That's always some anomalies happen and things don't go right. Well, this eventually evolved to a series of Salyut space stations.
That is correct.
Which one we have here, you think?
That would be Salyut 7, I believe. They had gone from having the smaller Soyuz arrays to something bigger. This picture right here, taken when that was kind of late in Salyut 7's lifetime. So those smaller solar arrays that you see attached to the bigger panels,
Mm-hmm.
those were a type of clip-on solar array that they actually added during spacewalks.
Hmm.
And the idea being is that as solar arrays get used, they lose their efficiency over time and the like. And so they put on the clip-on arrays to basically bypass it, give it more capability, and basically allow for the station's batteries to be charged up. Unfortunately, not long after that picture was taken, a problem happened after the last crew left, which the solar arrays did not track the sun, the batteries lost power, and the station ended up dead.
Mm-hmm.
So the Soviets had to launch a crew up there to dock with the dead space station and recover it, which I believe brings up the
Yeah, a
correct.
movie that they did about this. You can see this on. Yeah, there's some outlets out there you can watch this.
Now, I will point out it is a bit fictionalized, but essentially the core of the story is that they had to send a two-person crew up. And when they docked with the dead station and got on board, everything was powered down. And I guess one of the water pipes had burst. And the entire station was basically encrusted in ice with icicles. And so that became an additional challenge is when they when they were able to get the systems back online, they had to thaw it slowly so that the water didn't evaporate in the air too fast to saturate their air filter system.
Yeah.
But they eventually did it. They got the station back up and running. They essentially occupied it for another standard occupation time period of about 3 or 4 months. And then they left it. And the next station we come to is the Mir space station. And somebody came up with a really innovative idea of let's see if we can transfer a crew from the Mir space station to Salyut 7 to.
There's the Mir with a shuttle dock to it.
That is correct. And somebody came up with a clever idea of what if we were to undock a crew from the Mir, re-rendezvous with Salyut 7 and get as much of the usable equipment off of it, take it back to Mir, and extend the capabilities of Mir while Mir was still being equipped with more and more modules and growing in size.
Incredible. Yeah, that was quite a drama there. Back and forth, celestial mechanics working out like no one ever thought about that. That was pretty much an on-the-fly mission.
Yes, and I mean, part of the reason that facilitated it is both Salyut 7 and Mir were launched on the same orbital inclination.
Mm-hmm.
And they launched within about the same time period so that the orbits were basically parallel. But at the same time, too, undocking one spacecraft from one space station and rendezvousing the other had never been done before.
Yeah,
and it was definitely a Soviet first. The U.S. had not done anything comparably similar. I mean, you might say, well, the U.S. kind of did that when they undocked the LEM, landed on the moon, and then re-rendezvoused. Well, orbital mechanics around the moon, because of the lighter gravity, it's a little easier to do something like that. But with the gravity of planet Earth, orbital mechanics kind of locks you into limited options, as it were.
And that's a fascinating story to read about. You cover some of that in your Outposts on the Frontier book. We're talking with Jay Chladek. Jay, we're going to look at the past here a little bit in the way of my daughter looking at the International Space Station being chased by the shuttle.
Yeah,
for docking, and boy, we sure miss those days.
Yes, we do. And one thing I'll point out, going back to Salyut 7, there was a rather famous photo that was in a National Geographic that was published in the late 80s, which showed Salyut 7 and Mir on their parallel orbit tracks orbiting over Washington, D.C.
Wow.
But yeah,
look that one up.
Yeah, and these shuttle and ISS rendezvous, I can remember. I was in town for the very last shuttle flight, STS-135.
July 2011.
Yeah. Okay, actually, I'm going to back up. STS-131, which is the last night launch of the shuttle. It was kind of cool because 15 minutes before they launched it, ISS passed overhead.
Mm.
The night before, a Soyuz crew had gone up and rendezvoused on Easter morning.
Mm.
And I had saw it pass over because I was going to an outdoor mass at the time. I had seen the ISS pass over. The Soyuz crew had already docked with the station, so I already knew they were up there. Then the ISS passes over 15 minutes before the shuttle launches.
Wow.
It goes up. The next morning, I got up right before dawn. I went outside. I saw the ISS pass over, and then I saw the shuttle passing over about 3 minutes behind.
Hmm.
And that's just the cool thing you can see when you
Oh,
when
it
you go
is.
outside at
There
the
were
right
several
time.
opportunities for that. We'll forget, never forget a couple opportunities that we had about 100 scouts one time. We saw it all like that through binoculars and stuff. Well, what a new era we have here in the space station. We've got for 23 years this month, this International Space Station. This is what it looked like 23 years ago.
That is correct.
And you got the Zarya, Zvezda, and the
Zarya, Zvezda, and Unity.
Unity.
Yeah. Unity would be on the very top with no solar arrays. The Zarya and Zvezda, I sometimes get confused as to which one is which. But basically, the big white module on the bottom, just above the Soyuz, is also known as the Russian service module. That is basically the Mir type space station core.
Mm-hmm.
Then above it is the FGB node, which is kind of a storage locker. And then above that is the Unity. And the FGB node was the first one that they flew. Unity was docked with it, and then the Russian service module finally flew and docked with it, and that allowed for almost continuous occupation to take place ever since then.
And that's all right in the middle there.
That is correct.
The girders going horizontally are just that. That's the backbone, and people aren't occupied there. The modules are below that grid work right there.
Yeah, you have the main truss, which handles the main solar arrays and the heat radiators. And it's kind of interesting. You look at the very top center, you see a progress module docked, the Russian service module,
Mm-hmm.
2 solar arrays from that service module, and then when you look down to where the FGB module is, you can see the solar arrays kind of accordioned closed because they weren't really needed as much as soon as that central truss was added with those larger solar arrays. Mm-hmm. But I mean, going back to the time of Salyut 7 with those clip-on solar arrays, which I talked about, as I understand it, they are working to potentially add some smaller solar arrays to kind of improve the electrical efficiency, because these solar arrays have been up for over a decade now.
Right. Changed a couple of times.
Yeah.
The Kibo module is right above your head there with the
that is correct.
Japanese module. And right off the bottom here, we're going to be showing you a picture here in a minute where Axiom wants to dock.
Right.
And we'll dock some units, one a year, and eventually create a orbiting spa vacation resort for you to go up to there, Jay. What do you think about it?
I don't know. It might be closer to Mark Twain's Roughing It. But,
it might be indeed.
Little old Gemini 7 gym level Frank Borman joke.
Yeah.
But
couple-year-old photo here just to show you 5 or 6 things docked to the space station constantly.
That is correct. The most recent module that was added to the ISS was the mini space research module from the Russians called Nauka. Mm-hmm. It caused a little bit of drama when the module sent the station into a tumble, but things are stabilized now. But we had a little bit of a save moment, maybe not quite as elaborate as Salyut 7, but
it was. It started. Thruster started when the Russians' new space station their science docked. A thruster stuck open.
Correct.
And this 100-ton structure started moving in ways, and then its system started correcting for it.
Yeah, it did one complete rotation, as I recall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was about a year ago or more, something like that.
A little bit longer than that. It was like it was about 18 months ago, and that was like right before that was before the hostilities between Russia and Ukraine, and obviously. But the beauty of it is we do have a pretty ironclad arrangement with the Russians to help maintain the ISS.
Let's look a little more of the future here with
Correct.
our space station advocate here. Jay Chladek has written a book, Outposts on the Frontier.
Yes.
And you'll all be checking that out. There's an artist concept of the Tangong Heavenly Palace.
Right. Chinese space station, which is based on Russian architecture to a certain extent, but the Chinese don't just copy things. They come up with some really cool innovations on their own, and they do learn fast. So now when I was working on my book, Tiangong had only had like one of the early modules that was launched and was occupied briefly. There wasn't much written about it, so I was only able to write maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs dedicated to that. But don't get me wrong, the Chinese are coming. They may start like a little pebble rolling down a hill, but sooner or later it's going to turn into rocks and then boulders, and then you got an avalanche there of Chinese progress.
And we've talked about their lunar base at the bottom of the moon, the South Pole, if they want to get there.
Correct.
Well, we're ending our little conversation here with Jay Chladek. He's got to go do some more event work at Kennedy Visitors Complex. We're glad you spent time here with us, Jay. The Chinese space station is only about a third the size of ours.
Correct. 37 meters versus 109 meters. Because ours is made up of almost like 2 football fields sitting next to each other.
But the people, the volume of where the people are is it might be half of what we have, huh?
I would say so. I mean, and it's not just the habitat for the people. You also have to have a habitat for your experiments packages, which is one of the reasons why your modules are cylindrical. But if you look at the interior of those things, they're basically set up kind of rectangular because you've got those experiment lockers occupying those internal structures.
Exactly. Axiom, I talked about, has a series of starting in April to send up 5 different segments that will eventually be attached to the International Space Station, like this. Again, there's the Kibo module of Japan and their outdoor porch there. It's actually a Bigelow Entertainment Theater. That sphere is what they have built there.
Yeah, Bigelow Aerospace, which is innovated inflatable module designs. There was actually one that was docked with the ISS and used for experiment. They use it as a kind of a storage closet up there now. They after they got their testing done, they said, hey, we can utilize this for something more, and so they have. And
we'll look forward to seeing how Axiom, which is another private company that sent Peggy Whitson and Lopez Allegra is up for another.
Mike L.A. Yeah. Mike Lopez Alegria.
NASA astronauts are part of that company and gonna build this up there.
Yep.
China's making a big deal about their space stations cleaner than ours because they're using more Bluetooth and wireless network. Is that true, you think, Jay?
I think it is, but the one thing you got to keep in mind about, I mean, one of the concerns that we have flying the electronics modules that we fly on our stations, I'll tell you a little secret. The multiplexer demultiplexer boxes on the ISS, which is how the modules communicate with one another and hook to the main computer, they use 80386 architecture chipsets, which were used on IBM-based PCs back in the early 1990s, late 80s, early 90s.
30-year technology?
Yes, and the reason why they selected those for ISS architecture is because microscopically, when you look at the chipset, it is very big with a lot of empty spaces. They did it that way so the cosmic ray was to bullseye onto the chipset. Theoretically, it would pass through without doing any damage. By comparison, our smartphones today are so dense with chipsets and stuff that microscopically look incredibly dense. One cosmic ray going through the chipset on your phone would be enough to kill it.
Oh, okay.
So as I understand it on the ISS today, in the FGB node and a couple of other areas, they have old dead laptops in there where one day they just stopped functioning. So Bluetooth and wireless networks are all great, but I just hope that whatever computers they have selected are not
Hmm.
too advanced, because the space being a harsh environment can do damage.
Well, that's some great insight, Jay, that many of us haven't thought about.
Mm-hmm.
But we have been thinking about going to the moon, and we've got another space station we have to build, Mr. Jay Chladek.
Yep, the Lunar Gateway, and it's not just the Lunar Gateway that you got to think about as well. Technically, any vehicle that's going to go out to the moon or even beyond, either to an asteroid or to Mars, if it's a manned vehicle, it's going to spend most of its time operating like a space station on those coast phases to wherever you're getting to. So you have to have stuff for the crew to do, otherwise they're going to get bored very easily. But you have to have environmental life support systems on board. You have to have heat exchangers. You have to have water recycling and all that. And I mean, so technically, even Elon Musk's Starship there, that in this one concept you see docked with a gateway, it's going to have a very similar set of architecture designed for it as the
Mm-hmm.
space station. The only thing that's different is, of course, it's wrapped in that nice aerodynamic
Yeah.
covering that looks like a cool 1930s rocket to enter the atmosphere and exit the atmosphere.
Good point. A Starship that is due to launch tomorrow morning, Thursday or Friday,
Yep,
the 17th of November. Going to try that second launch of that. It needs to be almost like a space station in itself. It's so big, and it's going to have a lot of
yeah,
similarities to a space station, you're
yeah.
saying.
And my concern about the Starship is, to my knowledge, we haven't really seen anything indicating whether they have solved some of those problems or not. I mean, yeah, I know they're concerned about getting it off the pad, but once they're done with that, they got a whole heap of other
Wow.
design challenges or engineering challenges that they have to overcome.
It really is.
So it's not over yet.
There's your Orion Uber coming up there to dock with it.
That is
And then
correct.
here's another concept of the Blue Origin consortium
Yep,
lander there at the Gateway.
that is
Uh,
correct. Yeah.
the Gateway, are the pieces and parts been manufactured? Or European and Canadian partners, right?
As far as I know, whether we've got any final architectural designs of the hardware completely done, we don't entirely know. But there is talk that there might be a couple of pieces of hardware that had already been designed for the ISS that might be repurposed. Probably not anything that's currently on the ISS that would be undocked and used for a gateway, but modules that are on the ground potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And but the concerns are going to be a little different, because since a space station orbiting the Earth is in sunlight for 45 minutes of every 90-minute pass and stuff, the thermal loads and all that. And the other thing we got to worry about too on Gateway is it's going to be outside the Van Allen radiation belt, so they're going to have shielding in there in case of a solar flare.
Absolutely. That's radiation is one of the big things
Yep.
on any outpost. Outpost on the frontier. And the rest of the title is
A 50-year history of space stations in Earth orbit.
there you go. And you're young enough to be around for the next 50 years, it looks like here. Are you
We hope.
excited about what's on the horizon, Jay? And is man going to be occupying uh, orbiting hotels and things like that?
Well, things are going to progress how they progress, regardless of what any of our dreams are. But I will say this: I was born in 1970. I have no memory of the Apollo program. Space Shuttle was about my only program, and then after that landed for the last time, nobody quite knew what was going to come up next. But here we are, about 12 years after the last shuttle launch. We've launched our first unmanned SLS. We've got occupation of the ISS from commercial vehicles and stuff like that. The future is very bright. Will it progress in a way that I ultimately wanted to? Maybe, maybe not. But
Huh.
I like being pleasantly surprised. Let's put it like that.
Oh, good. Well, that's a good way of ending. You were a pleasant surprise to come in here and share your story with us. Here's our heroes up on the International Space Station on Expedition 70. Up there, we've got these seven smiling faces. Oddly, we do not have an American male orbiting the Earth.
That is
We have two
interesting.
American women. We got Mogensen of Canada there, and two Russians and a Japanese, three Russian or and a Japanese there, Furukawa. But yeah, no American males orbiting the Earth. When was the last
Or
time that happened?
it's been a while. Okay, no United States citizen, but well, we do claim Canada as North America, don't
There
we?
you go. There
All
you go.
right.
We're
So,
stretching for that. Well,
all
Jay,
right.
thank you a lot for a wonderful little program here and insight there. You have fun at the Space Center. Marty, thank you for a great job today. Is there anything you'd like to share about your book, Outposts on the Frontier, or about our museum, or about the event today you'd like to share with our Stay Curious watchers, Jay?
Well, you can order my book off of Amazon and where major booksellers sell the title, Outposts on the Frontier. When I selected that title, it was very easy to find if you just Google it. Usually it's
Okay.
the first title that pops up in a Google search.
All right. Well, good.
So,
Well, we'll sell you some books there. I'll be checking it out. And thank you for everything, Jay.
my
Again,
pleasure.
shake your hand there. Best of luck to you, Marty. A good job today. Another great week of Stay Curious, and our way of saying to everybody here that participated in our autograph session that we certainly appreciate you coming out today. If you're watching this on Friday, November 17th, we're going to have Miss Nicole Stott here Saturday from 1 to 3 o'clock autographing her wonderful book. Looking around, that wonderful book's title is Back to Earth. So
Excellent.
we're looking forward to Nikki Stott and an autograph session of her book Saturday here at the American Space Museum. Until then, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us. Thank you, Jay.
My pleasure.